I'm Laurie Timble, and inviting all of you to come down to the March Against Monsanto, May the 24th at the Parkinson Rec Centre.
One of the advantages of a majority government is they can pretty much do whatever they want. Now, how we ended up with a strong, stable majority government with just 39% of the popular vote, that's just a fun fact of Canadian democracy. But with voter turnouts at historic lows, everyone realizes that our democratic process, it needs some tinkering, which is why the government has introduced the Fair Elections Act. Ironic title because in a clever move, they have decided the way to deal with low voter turnout is to make voting more difficult. Gotta hand it to them, did not see that coming. How is it possible in 2014, in a bill that deals with how we can vote, was there absolutely no discussion of online voting? And I know online voting makes a lot of Canadians very nervous. I'm one of them. I'm old-fashioned. I like the notion of lining up in a church basement, getting a little stubby pencil and marking an X. And do you know what that makes me? A dinosaur, because while I may not like the idea of online voting, I know who will love the idea. Young Canadians. They are some of the most wired people on the planet. They go to school online. They work online. Heck, they find husbands and wives online. There are literally millions of young Canadians who have never walked across the room to an attractive person and tried to score a phone number, because there's an app for that. If the biological imperative won't get them out of the house, I don't know how voting is going to do it. The government has a responsibility to make voting available wherever Canadians live. And yes, all Canadians reside in a riding, but young Canadians, they live online. If we let them pay taxes there, let them vote there.
Hi there, I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
It's a little bit windy today, but we're still recording, and we wanted to make sure that you are still in the loop of what's going on in the Conservatives as they continue to run the country into the ground.
As Rick Mercer showed, the Fair Elections Act is going forward swimmingly. Of course, the Harper Conservatives are not embracing new technology in order to make voting easier. They're working on making it harder.
Say it's not so.
It is so.
And it's amazing. Rick Mercer, of course, love it, and definitely get on there, subscribe to his YouTube channel. It's worth it. This is our look at the Conservatives and the Conservative nightmare. What's this clip?
Here's a clip from Operation Mabel talking about 5 ways the Elections Act is unfair.
There are 5 key ways in which the Fair Elections Act will actually make federal elections more unfair. The first one is they're requiring more voter ID to vote. And that is going to make it much more difficult for hundreds of thousands of people to vote. The estimate is more than 500,000. Secondly, they're allowing wealthy people and banks to loan more and to give more to politicians, and that's a recipe for corruption. The third thing is they're allowing political parties to hide millions of dollars in campaign spending. The first loophole that's been introduced in election campaign spending disclosure in the last 20 years. And that's also a recipe for corruption and abuse of the law. Then they're also going to let the ruling party choose more frontline election workers at polling stations, which is dangerously undemocratic and unethical. And finally, they're not going to give the watchdogs the powers they need, and they're going to require the watchdogs to keep investigations on complaints and their rulings and decisions on complaints secret in almost every case, which will mean they can make biased decisions that favor one party over another and no one will ever know. The key is that everyone has to write the letter and send and express their concern, not just to the federal Conservatives who introduced the bill, but to all the federal party leaders, because this bill can be rammed through by the Conservatives. They have a majority, but it can also be reversed very soon if the 2015 election results in a different government. And so it's not only important to get the changes now if we can, but also to ensure that all the opposition parties are promising to change this if they get elected in 2015.
Operation Maple?
They're really aware of the issues, but what's really interesting in that is how more and more our conservative government is resembling the Republicans in the States.
Then yeah, it's like they took a page right out of the Republican manual and possibly George Orwell's 1984.
Of course, it's always a good thing when you allow more money into political campaigns.
Yeah, I know.
Not
it's kind
really.
of tragic. At any rate, we are going to stay on top of this, the pulse of the nation, as it were, with clips like...
Well, apparently Mr. Harper is flying around at the taxpayers' expense.
I forgot.
He is reimbursing some money, but of course, it's a far cry of what is actually being spent to ferry him and his corporate campaign advisors around.
Yes.
Check this out.
Back when the Conservatives were the opposition, they were critical of the then Liberal government for running up the travel bill, saying, "We have seen the Prime Minister flying around the country on Challenger jets, doing a few hours of government work, then spending the rest of the time campaigning and fundraising." But the tables have turned, and now it's this Prime Minister's travel under a spotlight.
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. This culture of entitlement goes on.
While Stephen Harper often has to fly for government business, it's when he uses the smaller Challenger jets for party work that has the opposition fired up. So much so, the NDP introduced a motion today to limit travel on the jets to government business.
You stand for accountability, and you're not going to hide behind a government of corruption. Come on, stand up and stand with us.
Now, the Conservative Party has reimbursed the commercial cost of 17 such flights on the jets since 2006. They paid the Department of Defense a total of about $37,000. The issue for the NDP? The actual cost to taxpayers of those flights is more than $118,000.
That's sending a message to the Canadian people that the taxpayers and the Canadian people are really being held in contempt by this government.
Harper is the first Prime Minister to reimburse any costs associated with travel on the jets and insists they have to be used for security reasons. But Harper is also under fire because of who is traveling with him on the trips. In some cases, Mark Kinn, a longtime Conservative fundraiser, accompanied him. The NDP says especially in that case, but also with all party business, the full, not commercial cost of the trip should be paid back. The Conservatives, meanwhile, maintain this is all much ado about nothing, pointing to the fact they've reduced overall travel costs by 23% in the last 5 years.
So it's nice they've reimbursed the Canadian taxpayers $37,000. Of course, they spent $186,000, so little difference in accounting, I believe.
Yeah, I know, but accounting's not something good, that Harper's that good at, considering he's a former accountant for the oil companies.
Now, there was a hue and cry here in Kelowna that they were going to discontinue accounting courses at our Okanagan College.
Yeah.
Of course, they kind of changed their minds about that after a large pushback against that. But apparently a university degree does not guarantee you a job here in Canada.
And what we want you to do is to watch the CBC special, Generation Jobless. So make sure that you get informed about what the statistics are. But check this out.
With 2 university degrees, Eric Scoff never thought he'd still be surfing job boards 2 years after graduation. He's got a government gig lined up, but it's only for 3 months. He's been a barista, a supply teacher, head of an after-school program, all jobs he's overqualified for. And he's not alone. While enrollment and fees for university have skyrocketed since a generation ago, a new StatsCan report shows that hasn't led to better employment prospects. Between 1991 and 2011, the number of young workers with a university degree jumped to 40% of women and 27% of men. But just like 20 years ago, a third of grads in humanities programs end up in positions they're overqualified for. Aisha Warsam is a month away from graduation. Her only prospect, the retail job she's had for 5 years.
The government has been warning of a labor shortage in skilled trades for years. So why do students keep flocking to universities when colleges and apprenticeship programs offer the promise of more immediate and sometimes more lucrative employment?
For too long, our university system has characteristically undermined our college education system, which provides critical job training skills for jobs that are in demand right now.
Still, proponents of university say it was never meant to be job training.
We're preparing students for the craziness of life and not for the certainties of a particular career with a certain set of skills.
This campus career expert says students need to be more proactive from day one.
If anyone thinks that it's too soon to begin their career planning when they're in their first year of university, think again.
Eric Scoff is optimistic his contract will lead to full-time work, but
our generation is really going to have to make some big changes.
And that's something he never learned in school.
It's true. A new study found that 260,000 Americans with bachelor's degrees are earning the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour or less in 2013, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Another 200,000 associate degree holders, America, are making below the minimum wage. When college graduates are getting paid minimum wage, we have a problem on our hands. Because the college is supposed to be the pathway to the middle class. They can't get a job. And they're gonna, you're gonna blame it on Obama. Oh, it's the Obama economy. Well, my friend, they probably couldn't get a job under George W. Bush. Because we're not creating the jobs, we're not using that money that we have to rebuild right here in America and invest in America. We're not using the money for that. We're using that money for something else. It's a crying shame.
So, the average Canadian student graduates with $25,000 debt.
And of course, that number goes up in the United States. They're paying a little bit more for their education. They tried to raise the rates in Quebec, and of course, the Quebec students did what was necessary to stop them from doing that.
Of course, the idea that there's 500,000 U.S. university graduates out there that are working away at minimum wage jobs kind of leads a little gravity to the situation, I would think.
Make sure that you get informed about what's going on. Once again, Generation Jobless on the CBC is the documentary you want to watch. And get informed about the fact that we don't have a National Education Board. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
You're tuned into a windy version of Radio Free Canada, recorded on April the 20th. We're going to be back talking about some pushbacks.
Exactly, all over the world.
Stay tuned.
Patrick Brazeu has been released on a $5,000 bail under the condition that he seek treatment for drug and alcohol abuse. The former Conservative was arrested on Thursday in Quebec on charges of assault, uttering death threats, and possession of cocaine, and also the breach for bail conditions. The senator was already on bail after being arrested last year for allegedly sexually assaulting his former girlfriend. He and two other lawmakers were suspended from the Senate in November after collectively charging hundreds of thousands of dollars for travel and housing expensive. Now, Joshua, this reads like almost a horror story. It's one breaking of the law after another as far as this suspended senator goes. Quite a bit of an embarrassment now, isn't it?
Well, indeed, it's symptomatic of the rampant immorality which is replete among the political class in this country. Obviously, it's of significance in light of the recent scandals with the mayor of Toronto, Rob Ford, who himself was exposed as having, it seems, taken illicit drugs. However, I think we should also understand this within the context of the rampant criminality that we see emanating from Canada's ruling neoconservatives. You know, the media in this country have really been belaboring the scandals with Rob Ford and now with Senator Brazeu. So some would say that these rather peripheral politicians, their criminality is kind of being exploited and belabored in Canada, because when the big crimes take place by the key figures taken, the Canadian media is unable to address them and is fettered and muzzled, it seems. And so some would say that, as I say, these issues are being overemphasized because the big crimes can't really be addressed in the Canadian media.
Okay, our correspondent Joshua Blakeney there reporting from Calgary via Skype. Joshua, thanks very much indeed.
The objective of Monsanto is clear. Monsanto has become the largest seed company in the world. Monsanto is in the process of buying up all the seeds of the world, which they then want to patent and control so that farmers will not be able to save those seeds. And they want to genetically engineer those seeds, and they want to put something called terminator technology in those seeds. And this has those seeds create suicide after one growing season so that farmers cannot save those seeds. So what Monsanto's really after is controlling all the seeds of the earth and making sure that the farmers of the earth cannot save those seeds. This becomes extremely important when you realize that 80% of all the farmers of the world depend on seed saving for their survival. So if Monsanto is able, either through patenting or through this Terminator technology, to destroy their ability to save seeds, the result will be mass starvation.